Serious, what's the creepiest, scariest thing you've seen but no one believes you? I was at the scene of a suicide work-related. Guy shot himself with a shotgun, right under the chin. When I walked in, a black cat was sitting in his blood and staring at me. Really weird. Edit, for the ones calling bullshit, that's cool all. The wife called us. His wife and kid came running out of the house past me as I got there. The detectives came out after the fact. And it was his own cat. That's some Lynchian shit. Well, good to know you have a suspect in your well-framed homicide investigation. I was walking to class from the dining hall on my campus when I saw a lady yelling for help and banging on the window of a nearby building. Lots of people were walking past, but I was the only one who seemed to acknowledge it. I went to the window to help and she told me she was locked in a room in the building and that she needed me to come in and open the door. Now, I have no idea of the layout of this building and where she was located. So I decided to call campus security for help despite her pleading with me not to call them and to just let her out. I call them and when I hear them coming I go to greet them so I can take them to the window. I leave for maybe a maximum of 15 seconds and when I return with campus security she is gone. We can't see her at the window and campus security goes inside to double check and sure enough there is no trace of her. Campus security definitely thought I was crazy and I'm sure my professor thought I was full of shit when I explained to him why I was late. No one seems to believe me that this happened but I swear it did. I think maybe one explanation is that she was somewhere she wasn't supposed to be, and security arriving would have led to her being in trouble, so she hid or found another way out. Or, you know, aliens. Or ghosts, maybe she's still in there. Yeah. Probably she's a criminal. Sound like she was trying to lure you into the building. Maybe she was trying to mug you or something like that. Reminds me of a story a comedian told. The gist was he was walking down the street in a bad neighborhood when a woman from a window of a disheveled apartment complex called out to him. She propositioned him for sex and he thought, why the hell not, I'm bored and horny somewhere I'm not familiar with. So he went into the apartment complex and soon realized the place seemed abandoned. Realizing he was in a really bad situation he made a run for it down the stairwell on the other side. As he was leaving he could hear the woman talking to a guy and saying damn it, he got away. I read comedian and was expecting a funny twist through the whole thing. Yeah. I want my money back. Worst comedian ever. I spent far too long searching for the punchline in that comment. Footsteps and banging in my attic. For about 2 months, almost every night I would hear from my attic. The steps are only like 5 feet from my room, small taps or footsteps. Then it gradually got louder to the point it sounded like an audible foot was pressing on the wood. I told my dad and he told me it was probably an animal that got up there or something. Thing is, my sister heard it too as her bedroom was in the same hallway as mine. My dad might have been right as it was completely gone after 2-3 months and right now at 2 a.m., I don't hear it. And I swear to God if I hear it after I post this I'm actually gonna piss my pants, take a weapon or SMTH and go stay in attic overnight. It's possible that some homeless people climb to attic at night to sleep though. I think your comment freaks me out the most in all the thread just because attics give me such absolute terror. Let alone an attic with someone that shouldn't be there. All my fear stems from the American Grudge movie when the chick Yoko with no jaw lives in the attic and murders that girl. Fuck that noise. My dad used to make the Grudge sound every time he goaded me up the steps to our attic, absolutely reinforcing this fear in true dad fashion.
Perhaps they look at you through holes or cracks in your ceiling while their head and jaw jitters and shakes wildly.
You're an evil bastard. I like you. Bahaha. If you genuinely fear someone is living in your home without permission like that, I deeply implore you not to attempt violent confrontation. Don't just grab a kitchen knife and think you're going to go John Wick on somebody. You will more than likely panic, and have now made the situation much more dangerous by introducing a weapon you have no idea how to handle properly into the situation. If you have a serious safety concern, call the police and ask them to investigate. If you're wrong, then you're wrong. But if you're right, do you really want to try and fight off some half-crazed homeless man? Or would you rather have the professional peace officer do so? Not mine and super late, but I wanna share one of my mom's stories. When she was a child, about 7 or 8 years old, she was watching TV on her room. Mind you, this was on the 70s, there was no smart TVs, obviously, only this super old bulb-powered televisions. Anyway, she recalls she was watching a crafting show for kids, like Art Attack and that stuff. The thing is, the show was hosted by a man in a black suit, pretty strange, but I mean, not really that uncommon. All of a sudden, this man looks directly to the camera and asks something of the like of, "Would you like to do it?" And he just waited, like when Dora the Explorer asks to the children, but it was a long, long pause, like he was actually hoping for my mom to answer. She quietly replied with a yes. And she swears on his life that the man said okay then and proceeded with the show. While he was doing the crafting, he started to ask my mom a lot of questions, like "What's your name? And are you alone right now?" My mom was obviously terrified and turned off the TV immediately. To this day she tells this story as it was something common, but at the time no one believed her. First time she told me I got the heebie-jeebies, I just got more chills. If you're reading this and about to go to sleep, there was a dog who was floating on a sofa for a week after a flood, but she got saved and reunited with her owner. Also, there was a dog stuck in a corner that wouldn't move, but after some McDonald's the dog trusted the rescuers and let them take him home. He was vaccinated against all diseases, his skin problem got sorted and he got adopted and is now living a happy life with his lovely owner. Had my laptop in my bed just before going to sleep, not plugged in, on battery. Made an offhand comment on some website about how I wasn't scared of ghosts and didn't believe in them. Then I turned it off and went to sleep with the laptop beside me in my bed. Next morning when I try to power it on, nothing happens. But the laptop feels unusually light. That's when I realized the battery had been physically removed and placed in the kitchen. I was alone in my apartment and do not have a history of sleepwalking at all. I used to have a buddy that lived in the same neighborhood, a few streets over. One night we were having a couple of beers in his backyard while playing cards. I had some things to do the next morning, so just before 10 I said my goodbyes and shoved off. It was a short walk, maybe 15 minutes door to door, so I never drove. Anyway, it was a nice night. Uneventful trip. But when I got home, my roommate was coming out the front door, coffee in hand, and dressed for work. He gave me a funny look and said he thought I was asleep since my truck was in the driveway. I told him where I'd been and asked why he was going into work at night. That's when he kind of laughed and asked if I was drunk. We stared at each other for a minute and then he told me it was just after 5 in the morning and he was going in just like he usually did. In my entire life, I'd never felt more confused than I did in that moment. I could tell he was dead serious, but I knew I had just left my friend's house. I checked my phone and sure enough, 5-something in the AM. My roommate left for work. I paced circles in the living room for a bit, then called the friend whose house I'd just left. He groggily answered and confirmed I'd left at 10 the previous evening. I have no idea what happened during those 7 hours of my life and it gives me chills to think about it all these years later. I wasn't drunk, I wasn't tired, no one could have slipped anything in either of the two Coors Lights I'd had. No known medical conditions that would have caused me to black out, and nothing has happened like it since. I just don't know what happened to that time. I have a similar story but much smaller. My husband lives around a 5-minute walk from the shop I used to work in, literally down the road and a left turn into the high street. I was due in at 6 AM, so my phone alarm went at around 5:15, so I got up, got myself ready etc. and headed out the door at around 5:45, as usual. Just as I hit the left turn, I get a phone call from my manager demanding to know where I was as it was 8:22 in the morning and they had to open on their own. I have no explanation of how a 5-minute journey on foot turned into nearly 2 hours. As far as I was concerned, I was just walking down the road. I even checked the date to make sure the clocks hadn't gone back forward overnight. Also, being close to the high street, if I had passed out or something then I'm sure somebody would have found me. I have no idea what happened, and of course nobody at work believed me and just thought I'd left my house late and not called in. I checked my phone and sure enough, 5 something in the AM. My roommate left for work. I paced circles in the living room for a bit, then called the friend whose house I'd just left. He groggily answered and confirmed I'd left at 10 the previous evening. I have no idea what happened during those 7 hours of my life, and it gives me chills to think about it all these years later. I wasn't drunk, I wasn't tired, no one could have slipped anything in either of the 2 Coors Lights I'd had. No known medical conditions that would have caused me to black out, and nothing has happened like it since. I just don't know what happened to that time.